people acquire this knowledge and they go and sit down with it. Nothing gets done if you go and sit down with it. As a matter of fact, the way things are going now, we need drivers, we need champions. And what I usually say, even to my colleagues, whenever I travel, I say we need people who will be crazy enough to drive something. If you are not, so determined, so passionate to drive something, it will not get done. And I am hoping that this will not be like every other, all the other kinds of workshops that people attend, and just a part of increasing their just knowledge increase, or to increase the number of certificates of participation they have. But from the questions I've received and from the enthusiasm, I really see you people as individuals who are determined to take up whatever you're going to get from this workshop and run with it, so that other people will see the drive and follow you. I want to say that I started the evidence to policy process. I can say authoritatively that I am among the very few persons that started it in Nigeria. And I know how much I have put inside of it that has made us to gain some reasonable results that we have. So what I'm saying in essence is that you need to drive it. You will get the knowledge, you will get some specialized skills from this, but you need to drive it. And it's very important I say this before I go into what I have for you in this second session. We'll be doing some things that are a little bit abstract from what many of you are used to. We'll be talking about politics. It's one area that a lot of people don't want to go into, but we'll be talking about it because you cannot talk about policy making process without politics. Very, very important. But before we go into that, there are some questions that I got that some of you sent, and I would like to talk about them, to respond to some of them before, or to all of them. They are just few before we go into what we have this session. Now, there is a question from our friend, Dr. Akindele from Unilag. The question reads, ideally, what are the processes involved in policy formulation? How have we always adhered to this ideal part? Could the defect in the policy formulation process account for the issues we have with implementation? Well, I thank you so much for that question. It shows that you were really following what we were talking about in the first session. Let me say this. Sometimes people have talked about implementation, that we are having implementation problem, that policies are made and it is in the implementation that is the problem. Well, as an expert, I will tell you that the implementation is not really the problem, it's the policy. If you make a policy that is not implementable, you can't implement it, even if you have the components that can make for a very good implementation. You cannot implement an unimplementable policy. It is not possible. Now, there is a new dimension we have started introducing in policy. It is called costed implementation plan. Costed implementation plan. Has it ever occurred to you that you should put the cost of policy implementation? Now people make policies and they don't also consider the cost of policy implementation. Now, you see, when you make policy with the cost in mind, you will not make policies that are over ambitious. That's why we're talking about contextualization. You will not make policies that are over ambitious because you know what you have. Now, I mean, we all have our homes, we have salaries that we are receiving at the end of the month. Now, you will be crazy to start putting on maybe what to do that is beyond your earning. You will know that it's already a failure. Just can't work. So that's exactly what is happening. Sometimes, in fact, most times, if you don't put policy costing in place, you can become so, let me say, unreasonable, irrational in your planning, in your guidelines that you are putting in place, in your recommendation. Sometimes people make policies and put recommendations that are not possible for anybody to implement. And that's why these days, when we are looking at implementation recommendation, we try as much as possible to encourage people not to make it academic. Now, let me give you an instance. If, for instance, you are talking about controlling air pollution, and then somebody will now write in a policy, the government should ensure that there is reduction in emission of carbon monoxide into the environment. And that is a recommendation. It doesn't make sense. The government should ensure. You are not telling, you are in that recommendation, you have not stated whose responsibility it is. How are they going to ensure it? What strategies are they going to use to ensure it? That's what we're talking. You know, I looked at many Nigerian policy documents and I said, look, this is nonsense. No wonder nothing is working. Because if you make policy and you are making generic recommendations, that's too academic. This is the normal thing that researchers will do to escape accepting responsibility of really going into detailed explanation and description of what should be done to address a situation. So that's what I'm talking about. You know, so that's the problem with the kind of policy formulation that we are having in this country. The fact that the policies that cannot be implemented in reality, realistically, are made. And one of the reasons it happens that way is that there is no priority setting before policies are done. You need to do priority setting. Identify which are the areas that are your priorities. Look at the resources at your disposal, and then see how can these resources be, you know, properly channeled towards addressing this policy issue that we are talking about, and what kind of monitoring and evaluation mechanism do we put in place so that we can still check as the policy is going on if it is still consistent with the objectives of the policy in the first instance. So that's where we are having a lot of problem. Formulation is not the issue. The process of the formulation is not really the issue, because, you know, the mechanisms are there, the protocol or the framework for policy formulation is there. I showed you the policy cycle, all right, where you do issue raising. From issue raising, you now do stakeholders engagement and look at the issues during stakeholders consultation. And then, of course, you carry out some research, you know, either primary research or secondary research to generate appropriate evidence. And then, of course, you now go into the policy, drafting process. And then after that, you subject it to a policy dialogue. And then, of course, before you even consider the implementation aspect, you need to make sure that the monitoring and evaluation and performance assessment, component is there. And then, of course, you put the lifespan of the policy so that, you know, once the lifespan is getting to the expiration date, you know that you have no choice. You have to do something to update the policy. So that's what I can say that is the major issue with implementation. The fact that we are not making policies that are implementable. And because of that, we're having implementation challenges. I can tell you in Nigeria, we have very robust implementation process in fact, at the national level and even at the state level. I mean, and if you see the way some of the partners and the other funders have helped us in this, but the problem is that policies that are being made are not properly contextualized, so it cannot even fit into our context. And so when you are implementing something like that, you put in a lot of resources, you make all kinds of efforts, you see that you are not really getting the kind of results that you are seeing. I'll be talking more about that as we look at the politics of health policy making. Then the second question from Dr. Buraimo from Unilag also. He said, thank you, sir, for your well-articulated and timely presentation. Thank you very much for that. Please, what is the way forward? How can we ensure that researchers and other stakeholders participate in decision policy making? I am of the opinion that some unnecessary strikes and unrest could be avoided if decision and policy makers involve relevant researchers and other stakeholders before making the decision. I absolutely agree with you in this second aspect of your question. Absolutely, absolutely. But you see, the thing is this. If somebody does not lead the process of this coming together, it doesn't get done. Nothing gets done on its own. Somebody drives something before that thing can work. That's the major problem that we are really having here. And that's why I said that this collaboration, partnership building, relationship building is very important. Very important. Because we are, in our context as Africans, relationship is very important. It's paramount. It is critical. Friendship is critical because people on the basis of friendship, on the basis of relationship, can go extra mile. They can even go out of their way to make something work. And that's the major problem I see in this. People, yes, we have brought in a lot of Western, Westernization, where people operate independently. They want to be on their own. They are disconnected from people and all that. That is not our culture. We need relationship. And that is one of the major ways we can avert some of these preventable strikes and preventable unrest. It's a matter of negotiation, which I will still talk about in the next one. You can't have your way all the time. You should be prepared to lose something so that you can gain some better things. But if relationship is not there, people will not be able to make the necessary sacrifice. What you can make sacrifice for your friends, for your family, you may not do that for a stranger who you do not know. So that's where, that's the way forward. And like I say, this meeting has brought many of you together who perhaps may not have known each other well. This is an opportunity to carry on with this. I always encourage people, when this meeting ends, please don't scatter. You have already formed a network, a very strong network of policymakers and researchers with diverse experience, diverse understanding, diverse capacity. As a matter of fact, you can even form an association with this. Register it, form an association. There's nothing that stops you from forming maybe a society for environmental, policy practitioners, something like that, and start working together. Because this knowledge you have got now, no other person who didn't participate in it is having it. You are having it now, but you can take it forward. You can come together and then start forming a pressure group. And before we started the Society for Health Policy Research and Knowledge Translation. And one of my visions is that we will go to the National Assembly. We will present bills. We will attend policy meetings where they invite people to come and talk, to come and discuss a policy issue that they are presenting at the National Assembly, policy debates. We will attend, because it is only by making your voice known that you can really move forward in this country. But if you stay and just hoping that something will happen, nothing will get done. So I'm saying that the way forward is, one, the relationship you build to form a very strong consortium, and then you take it forward by meeting going forward with it, meeting the key people, the key organizations, key institutions, key stakeholders that are doing anything that will facilitate your objective. So you start working towards that, and you see you making a lot of progress. Now, today, if you remember what happened in the US and which has spread across the world, that Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter was started by three young ladies, just three of them, just three. But they were so consumed with it, so passionate with it, and they pushed it forward. Today, it has become a worldwide movement. Just three young ladies who started it. So that's what we are talking about. These things are not difficult, just that somebody has to be, so engrossed or consumed with the passion to get this thing done before it will really be done. I hope that has helped you gain some understanding. And then the third question is from Mrs. Emamoke Dari from Rainforest Limited, an NGO. I'm happy that we have NGOs participating because they have a very important role I will talk about in the second session. You say, thank you, sir, for this well-articulated presentation. Thank you. There are two issues I want you to elaborate on. The first is the issue of collaboration. The success of the sustainable development depends on collaboration. Yes, I agree with you. How can we overcome this so as not to duplicate projects and policies? The second is, how can the general public be convinced to own a policy and thereby not wait for anyone to come after them, as the example you gave? All right. Now, the issue of collaboration, how can it be made possible? I've explained that in the last explanation I gave. Collaboration is driven by individuals. And when you have common interests or common platform that you have shared interests, you have shared values, it's a good opportunity to be able to collaborate, to establish a formal collaboration network, like what the example I just gave you. I have, let me say categorically that this is one of the greatest success factor in my career as an expert in health policy and health systems, and of course, which has also given me a kind of global reputation. I don't joke with partnership, I don't joke with collaboration. Every trip I go outside this country, I go with the principal objective to build collaboration. I have collaboration all over the world. And so it makes it easy for me to access funding, because some of these funders will tell you, okay, you are in Nigeria, we need consortium. We need people that will work in different countries. And then some of you that may have traveled to visit other countries, you just came back, you didn't collect anybody's card, you didn't give anybody your own card. Even meetings within the country, there is no exchange of card. There is no exchange of email address. Sometimes even phone number, getting phone number contact is a problem. Now, we need to stop that. Every meeting you go, have at the back of your mind, you want to build collaboration, relationship, because you will need it tomorrow. It's very, very important. That's how it works. Somebody said, how do you know somebody? You know somebody by going to know the person. Just introduce yourself to the person. I am this. This is what I do. This is my area of operation. And then it starts there. One thing I have charged all my students and mentees, I told them, anybody that is traveling, either for a meeting within the country or outside the country, you have to come and show me your business card. You have to show me your business card, because you are coming from somewhere. In that your business card, your name is there, your qualification is there, your contact is there, the organization you are representing is there. You must show it to me before I can approve that you travel. And when you get there, you distribute that, and as you are coming back, come with some from so many people so that you can see. And once they do that, I tell them, as soon as you come back, start writing, start talking, start contacting them, build the relationship, because you never can tell what is going to help you to do in the future. So that's how you can do that. So let's not throw away the wonderful relationship we are building using this meeting. It's very, very important. And then when you have done that, that's the only way you can know which projects are going on so that you don't duplicate. Now, if you don't know something, there is no way you will know it. There is no way you have that information. But when you work with people who are already working in some places and all that, you are connected to them in, relationship wise, you'll be able to know what is happening, and then you will not start duplicating projects. So that's very, very important. And then the second one you asked about, convincing the people to own the policy. It's very simple. I will speak about it in the second one, but let me just answer you briefly now. You don't start a policy without doing what is called a citizens panel. A citizens panel or stakeholders engagement event is very, very critical to the commencement of any policy. Now, because you can't do policy without getting the beneficiaries or the people that the policy is directly affecting involved. It's very, very bad. And that's what is happening in the country. For instance, somebody wants to make policy on environment, and then you leave out the people that are mostly affected in that environment. Maybe there is oil spillage. You want to make a policy against oil spillage. And then you gather people together to discuss about how the policy is going to be made. And you leave out the people who are living in that community. You have not done anything, because whatever you do, it is not representing them. So that's very, very important. So that's the way to go about it. Once people participate in the policy process, they own it, because they will make some suggestions that will be incorporated inside that policy. And anybody who makes any suggestion, and when the policy recommendations are read, and the person sees that, oh, my own suggestion is number 2, he has already owned it. He has expressed ownership. And that will go a long way, to make people to even enforce it by themselves. Let me give you an example. In one of the locations in our state capital, before the introduction of the Ministry of Environment policy of going from place to place and picking the refuse from strategic locations across the town. Before that was done, we were having people throwing dirt everywhere, littering the whole city. Then when the Ministry of Health came with this, the first thing they did was to consult people in different localities, different locations, and now told them, now we want to start picking your refuse. Can you people tell us a particular spot that the whole, maybe this particular locality, we agree to be bringing their refuse material, so that we'll come and be picking it there. The community people there, or the locality people, gather together. I'm talking about the city, not even in the rural area. They gather together and identify a particular point and say, please, we will be bringing it at this point, so time every day. And they all agreed. Now, somebody now carried a refuse and went and dumped somewhere. The people around there attacked the person and told him, if you drop that in there, we are going to beat you up and we're going to deal with you. There is a place where we have agreed that it should be kept. Why would you go and drop it there? So the man had to pack it there and go and put it in the designated place. There was no policeman, there was no military person. It was the members of that street that came up with that. And that's how it's been working for us in the state capital. All right, so you cannot make policy and expect people to own it if you don't make them part of the policy process. So that's what I can say on that. I will still talk more about that in the second lecture. Now, the fourth question, a lot of structural and tactical changes occur in the environment through non-governmental, private innovation, market-oriented. Sometimes the government simply reacts to the changes after. Is there a way of pushing research evidence to some extent this way, instead of waiting for the government institutions? Well, I would love to answer this question, but it is part of the main thing I'll be talking about in the second session. So Dr. Salmi, can you just exercise some patience when I go into the main lecture? These are I'll be giving you the answer to this question, because it's really with a political process, and then I'll be talking about that. All right.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Prof, sir, there are just 2 more questions. I don't know if you saw it.
Okay.
Let me just read it out so that I don't bore you. I don't take you to any stress. There's one by Mr. Atibere from the Federal Ministry of Science and Tech. I think it's more of a comment to question. He said, talking about collaboration among stakeholders, I think that there is the need for effective linkage interaction among policymakers, researchers, and industry to ensure taking up of our research and development products for creation of jobs and sustainable development. I think that's a comment. So let me just go to the last question. Okay. This is from Dr. Olusheye at Unilag. She said, Prof, how do we address if there's any conflict of interest between the researcher and policymakers? Okay.
Okay, how do we address conflict of interest? Well, I will still talk about it in the so let's when I go into that. But in case after my presentation I didn't really address it to your satisfaction, we'll still have about 20 to 30 minutes after the class to still discuss, so that you can still bring up that issue. So I'm going to address it as we go on, in the next session. So do we have any more comments or questions, or should I just go ahead?
Participants can now ask or make any comment. Prof, I think you are aiming for 10 minutes or 5.
Yes, about that time. Okay. So that
Hello, Dr. Shobamu.
Yes, sir.
This is Dr. Akedele again, sir. Thank you, Prof, for the responses to the questions. There was a point you made during your presentation about researchers submitting research proposals for ethical consideration, including aspects about the issue of the proposal having a policy component, as it were. I think that is a very good idea, sir. But what I want to throw at you, sir, is that I wouldn't know how possible that would be to you to actually, because I know that you might be part of the ethics committee, set up the HREC, NREC, and all the rest. I think it's important that we sell that idea, that idea is actually adopted by HRECs and ethics committees, as it were, because that will make researchers to actually think about the policy aspect of the output of their research while they are writing up the research proposal. So I think we all need to preach that suggestion that you have stated in your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I am happy you are saying this. You will do us a favor. Once you get back to your university, please talk to the relevant people and let them, they can put up that. It's not a very difficult thing. If you have a directorate of research, and then you can have audience with the director and introduce this to the person. It's a laudable thing, and I think the person will buy it. I think one of the things that helped us in the university is that before I was appointed as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, I was the Director of Research and Innovation and Commercialization in the university. So you can't get any research grant that is given in the university if you don't have the policy aspect tied to your research. It's a very difficult thing at the initial stage, because some of our colleagues in physics, for instance, were asking, how can I am doing something on physics. How can I start doing, or mathematics? So the people in the core physical sciences, they were the ones that had the greatest problem with that. But I had to set up some training programs and now show them how to link what they are doing to the population, to policy. And they saw the linkage and everybody was excited about it. And since that time, people have been doing something, anything they are doing, they want to look at the policy implications. So I'll be happy to hear that maybe your university, somebody like you initiated the process, and then, I know it may take a little while, but once you continue to push and then get other people who are like-minded, maybe some of those who have attended this meeting with you, and you drive it, it will help your university a lot, because what it will mean is that there is no research that will come out of that university that will not have policy implication. And you would have done a lot. You would have helped a policymaker so much, and then your work will now become more relevant to your environment. And that is a very, very beautiful thing, to do. So thank you very much for that. And then as you go on ahead, if you also need any form of support that can be given to you, please let me know. I'll be willing to also provide more support for every one of you in any of the areas that you want to see that you promote this evidence to policy process. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Uneke. Coincidentally, we have on board in this meeting the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Academics and Research, who also has an oversight function over the Research and Innovation Office here with us. So I'm sure he's taking note of your comments, and I'm very sure that in one way or the other, in no short, long time, we will be able to incorporate this. Sir, he's here. Professor Familoni, sir, would you like to make a comment, sir?
We have Professor Obo, and the person who has this question too is part of our group, so we shall deal with that suggestion.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you for your suggestions.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, I have Dr. Olujimi, moving on away from Unilag. He's from Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. Dr. Oluche, you can go ahead, sir. Your comment or question.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I want to especially thank you for the knowledge that you've shared with us. It's very encouraging, especially for upcoming researcher like my very self. Actually, I started something on evidence policy formulation, which was started about 3-4 years ago. I think 2016, 2017. I was part of the emerging researchers that were taken to Italy for a training by European Union in Ispria. We were there for like 3 weeks, thereabout. And when I came back home, there was a grant that I got, and it requires evidence formulation, which Dr. Bada was also part of the team, which is a colleague from my department, a senior colleague from my department. But this morning session has actually opened my eyes, sincerely, to processes that needs to be followed. But my question here is, which is also similar to what Dr. Akindele asked earlier, is on policy formulation. As in, my university is a university of agriculture. I worked as an environmental scientist. Now I do work on human samples, which for me, I know it is a requirement to get ethical approval, most especially if you want to publish in high quality journals. But my questions to you, sir, it's on agricultural produce. Like people doing some research in the lab that they first need to do some things in the lab before they can move to the area of going to field. How do policy formulation comes in there? Because, like people doing some genetic modified research in the lab, which has no policy formulation at the onset. And they needed money, or they needed funding to carry out such research. And also, currently, I'm in the UK.
Dr. Olujimi, you need to round up because we have 3 minutes for Professor Uneke.
That is my concern. That how do we bring in people that their research is not actually are directly linked to formulation at the initial?
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Let me start by saying that ethical clearance is very, very important for any work you are doing that involves human, animals, and environment, basically. Yes, these three, any other work you are doing that is related to these three, you need ethical clearance. And it is very, very important. In case where you are, they don't have, they don't cover this area, you need to let them know. It's very, very important that you need to let them know. And then talking about how do you get policies, to cover this area. If there are no people who know about it, you may not have any effort made there. But now that you know about it, you can start driving it. That's something I keep on telling people. You just need only one person that will be crazy enough and passionate enough to drive something, and the person will get it done. It's as simple as that. Once the passion is there, you will be able to get it done. Even if we don't have policies covering that now, you can start. And the example I gave you, the Black Lives Matter, that is a global movement now. Only 3 young ladies started it in America, Black women, and it's now a global. It has caused a lot of awareness globally. So it may just be that you may be the only person within this area now, but you have got some insight from what we have said and taught. So you can now use some of the skill you have gained and see how you can push forward for this. Get 1 or 2 persons to join you, and then you are increasing the number of people who are interested in this. And before you know what is happening, it will become a very powerful movement. And then you have policies that will cover this. That's what I can say to that. I hope it makes sense to you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir. I know we need to move into your session now, but I'll just take this last question or comment. Dr. Jerome, you have 30 seconds, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. I am from Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research. And to an extent, we have been able to meet with some of our stakeholders, since like Nigeria, including Federal Department of Fishery, NIMASA, because we research in marine environments. And thank you for the models that you even stated, you presented today. It gave me an eyesight into another approach that we can really do more. And I think this message we have to be taking back to our director, because I think most of them are not aware these strategies. Though individual different departments, we have meetings with stakeholder research, but I still want to know how this research institute, NEOMA, can also extend to other universities and other policymakers aside the one we have been dealing with, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
you can go ahead. I was saying, and you can move on to your presentation after that, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, thank you very much for that. I am happy that the presentation is really making sense to every one of you. Now, these are models, and each of them, I have published papers on them. You can check the internet or my institute's website. I will give that to you after the lecture, so that you can go to the section on publications. All the 9 models I've presented, there are papers that we have written that you get the details of the processes, get the details of the step-by-step approach. What I just did was just to present to you, the summary of what we have done. You can get the details of it. And so when you get the papers and read them, you will now see the step-by-step approach you are going to use to be able to get other people, to get to know what you people are doing. And one other thing I can also suggest that will build the relationship. You people can establish a meeting. You can decide to hold a meeting and invite those people. Let them come so that you people can talk, you can reason. I know the problem of funding now, where you have to make resources available for meetings and all that. But if you cannot get that done, what you will do is that contact people, contact them. They may not know you, but this is what I usually prescribe to people. For instance, you want to contact the director of an institution that you are interested in partnering. You may not just go for the person's number or email address and write the person directly. It doesn't work that way, because the person will look at you as a stranger. Somebody like me, I hardly pick phone calls of people that I don't know their number. Otherwise, I will not do anything but, talking to people without doing any other thing. But there are individuals that when they call me, even if I'm in a teleconference like this, I will tell them, please, I will call you back later. So you need to get to find individuals who have that kind of relationship with the director. And through them, they can introduce you. The person can tell the director, I have this person that is coming from an Institute of Marine and Oceanography, organization, and he would like to talk with you. Something like that. And the person links you up. That's the way it's done. All right. So if you cannot hold a meeting that you invite them, explore avenues of trying to get to them through somebody that know them better, even in their departments, in their universities or in their institutions. You get to know people. And that's why I encourage you, and which I want to say it now for every one of you. Please be friendly. I know some of us are, introverts, they call it. You are not so good at relating with people. And I've asked people say, I am not so good at knowing people. I'm not so good at socializing. You better learn how to socialize, because that's the only way you can get to build networks. You learn to socialize, learn to, build friendship. Yeah, the more friendship you have, the more connection you have, the better your chances at getting anything done. Are you getting what I'm saying? I have broken into the National Assembly today. I mean, it was a very simple thing. All I did was I looked for somebody I knew who worked in the National Assembly, and the person helped me to get into the National Assembly, introduced me to some of the key people there, and I went to see them, and I built relationship with them. So today, those people in the National Assembly, I can contact them directly. But if I had gone on my own and start writing letters to them, they would treat it as a stranger. So build on this. If this is the major thing you can take up from this workshop, that relationship is the key. That is the only thing that can make you succeed in our state here in Africa. Relation that, and you see people can even come to your program, not because of the money you will give them. Some people even transport themselves. They will, at their own expense, to honor your program because they have built relationship with you. So that's what I want to, let you know, and that will help you a lot. So thank you very much for all the questions. I appreciate them. I hope I've been able to, in my own little way, do some justice to that. So thank you. So let's go to the what we have for today. I hope I will still be able to share the screen.
Yes, sir. You have co-host right now, sir. You can still share your screen.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And just to mention that participants who didn't have their question, because I saw additional comments or questions, Prof will take it after this slide. After this session, he will take it during the Q&A.
Okay, so can you all see the slides now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, so we are going to be talking about the foundation for policy making and evidence use part 2. And the focus is the politics of policy making. Like I said at the beginning, that some of the things talking about here may be a little bit, you are not very familiar with it, but I will do my best to simplify it as much as possible so that you can understand and then see the relevance of this to what we are talking about. Start with this. Plato said something. He said one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Like I told you people at the first, I like lions, and I use lions a lot to do my teachings. You know, especially at the postgraduate level. A situation where a lion is running away from a hyena, you know that there is a problem. So that's exactly what is happening. Many of us who would have played vital role in reshaping the policies in the environmental sector, we have not been able to do that because we were told that you shouldn't have anything to do with politics. It's a dirty game. It is for corrupt people. It is for heartless people. It is for people who don't have the populace in mind, and so on and so forth. But that is wrong. That is wrong. And from what I'm guiding you into today, you will see that you cannot make any change in a democratic process if you don't get involved in the governance and the politics of your wherever you are. Now, let me also correct this or clarify this. I am not talking about partisan politics. I'm not talking about you going to become a registered member of a political party, though there is nothing wrong with that. It's your fundamental human right, and then you are free to exercise your civic responsibility either in a partisan way or a partisan. It's left for you. But what I'm saying is that it is important for you to understand the political system. You must understand it. You must know how things work. You must know how the politics of your area work. It's very, very important. You cannot be a novice to the political situation in your place. It will be difficult. You know, it will be difficult for you to really make any reasonable change, any reasonable impact. Let me start with this. I was not, you know, talking like this before. But something happened. You know, I've always had this orientation as an academic that the ivory tower is a sacred place. It shouldn't have anything to do with politics. You separate the ivory tower from what is happening. You just stay in your university and just do your research, publish your papers, become a professor of international repute and all that. And it was the orientation I had, you know, when I was coming into the university. You know, so I didn't want to have anything to do with this, the politics. But I now started coming into evidence to policy process and started attending meetings. And something happened in Addis Ababa in 2012. I was in a meeting and I was to report something about what was happening in Nigeria and the efforts we're making to, you know, bridge the gap and all that. And there was something I could not say about my country. One professor from Cameroon who had lived in Nigeria and worked in Nigeria now started telling me something that would have been done. So I felt embarrassed that one, I didn't know that I'm in Nigeria, I'm a Nigerian. This information, I don't have it. And I discovered that I didn't care about news. I was not interested in even listening to news. I was not interested in knowing what is happening in the country. All I was interested in is to do my research in the university. I attend conferences and present it. But I was embarrassed. And that day from 2012, I made up my mind. There is no single day that will pass that I won't read at least 2 newspapers. And I can tell you from 2012 till date, there is no single day that passes that I don't read at least 2 newspapers. So the essence, and since that time, I have come to know about what is happening in the country, have better understanding. And you know something, when you read some of these things happening, especially online, and you look at the blogs, look at the write-ups, sometimes I marvel at Nigerians, the kind of insight they have, the kind of interpretation they have into some of the political events. It's so amazing that there is no way somebody like you who is occupying the position of making a policy change shouldn't have understanding of those information. Honestly, I I am amazed at the kind of comments that follow some news by Nigerians. Some of them will take time and start analyzing. And you look at the analysis, some of them are very objective. I know some, we align to political parties and all that and try to, twist facts. But there are some that are, you know that this is an objective analysis. And you get it at no cost, really. You understand? Sometimes I feel for those people who write blogs. I said, somebody would have been making money. How can you be able to offer analysis free of charge? You will not charge anybody anything, but you just write comments. Some of them will take time, and in fact, I'm even thinking whether to use it as a research topic to give my students to analyze blogs that are, over certain news, online. So what I'm saying in essence is that by being able to follow the events in the country, there is hardly any information that I don't have at the tip of my finger concerning Nigeria now, as far as news is concerned. You understand? It's unheard of that you, as a director or as a senior lecturer, a professor in the university, your driver will be telling you that the president has announced that there will be curfew. Your driver is telling you, or your security man is telling you, a professor, it's a shame. The information should come from you, not from them. You not say, is that so? Okay, what did they say has happened? You are asking a security man to start telling you what has happened in the country, where you are supposed to be a major player in the policy issues. So these are some of the things I want to highlight, so that you can understand when I'll be saying certain things, you don't feel annoyed, because there are certain things I'm going to say. I've been saying it among my colleagues, and many of them have got this understanding, and then they are trying to come out of the prison they have built for themselves, that they don't want to have anything to do with the outside world. It has to be within the four walls of the university. And my understanding concerning those people is that they don't really make any significant impact except within the university. They don't make any significant impact outside, except within the university only. So it is very, very important that I state this, so that you all can see the angle that I'm coming. And with this foundational explanation, you'll be able to follow what I'm going to teach you now. Now, politics. I'm doing the introduction. Now, politics defined classically as who gets what, when and how, affects the origins, formulation, and implementation of public policy in all the social sectors, including environment. Politics about who gets what, when, and how. There is no way you can take away who gets what, when, and how from policy formulation, because you are making policy about the people. You are making policy about intervention. You are making policy about reforms. You are making policy about bringing a change. It's about who gets what, when do they get it, and how do they get it. That is purely politics. There is nothing there else. So that's very, very important for you to understand. Now, politics dictates, for example, who is in this, who are the priority, which are the priority area, who will provide the services, who will be subsidized, and how budget ought to be allocated and spent. Now, do you think budgets are just allocated like that? No, there are some political intrigues that go on even in budget allocation. Very, very important. Sometimes I speak to my colleagues in ASU and tell them, yes, we are fighting a just cause for, education to receive the budgetary allocation that it should. But you see, you also need to find a way of getting into the people that are in charge. Somebody or a group of people sit down and say, okay, put 5%, put 15% in education, put 20% in this, put 30% in this. Yes, there may be some yardstick, there may be some things they use, fine, we agree with that. But then it is human beings who make it. It is human beings who decide that. What will it cost us to get to collaborate with the people who do those allocation, so that it will come to education as it should. It's just because somebody who is doesn't care about that is amongst them, and he will not want that to happen. But we have to find a way. That's why I always talk about, I will still talk about that. Negotiation, demand creation, consensus building, advocacy, very, very important. And I'll be talking about some of that in this session. Very, very important, because without that, we will not achieve anything. We'll only be making noise, and we will not get anywhere. I will still talk about political feasibility, but before I get there, I just want you to have this at the back of your mind. Now, in spite of its acknowledged importance, there is also broad agreement that politics and political issues are rarely analyzed and frequently ignored at all stages of policy identification, development, and implementation process. We are not analyzing it enough. That's the problem. So when you don't analyze the main thing that determines how things are done, who gets it, when the person gets it, you just end up, just staying at the surface and leaving out the main thing. So that's why it is very, very important. I look at this framework for evidence-informed policy process. Now, I told you in the first lecture that we have this different types of evidence. There is the research evidence using systematic reviews now, which are considered among the highest form of research evidence. And then you are bringing in the local evidence, talking about judgments, about modifying factors, the needs, the values, the costs, and the availability of resources. These are local evidence. And you are bringing it together at the level of judgment about, the expected benefit, harms, cost of policy options. These are some of the things you take judgment based on the information, or call it evidence, available to you. So if you have information that a particular area is suffering more than another one, you will be much more disposed under normal circumstances to give attention to where the challenges are mainly, so that you can address the issue. So, and this is where, some aspect of politics also come in. And then after making the judgment, there is another aspect down there where we're talking about judgments about trade-offs. Trade-offs, you have to look at what do you accept, what do you, trade off, what will you suspend now and do it later, which one will be much more important at the moment. How can we address certain things now and then maybe leave the others later? These are some of the things that come in. And, somehow political processes coming, political issues coming. And it is very, very important. There is nothing you can do about it. It's there. And let me say this, whether anybody likes it or not, that is the global language. That is the global phenomenon. In case many of you don't know, there is what we call global political economy of environment. And you need to understand that. There is the political economy of the environment. There is high-level politics at the international level. There is international environmental politics. Is there. So countries are also trying to understand the dynamics of this policy and the politics at the international level. And when we're talking about it here, there is no way you can run away from it. You need to understand the process, so that when you are now making contribution in your policy making process, you are doing it with an understanding that you know what exactly that is happening. Now, understanding the politics of policy making. Now, understanding the politics of policy making is not an invitation to alter research results. I must emphasize that. We are not saying, you getting politics involved so that you can twist research, you can compromise research purity, research rigor. No, that's not what we're talking about. So that you can align it with political interests. No, but rather it's an opportunity to better match unbiased scientific research to policymakers' priorities in order to help ensure that research findings are more relevant and meaningful to the decision-making audience. Now, I know that sometimes because of interests, all right, some people will want certain things to go certain places, but there are also times that if you are able to convince the person who makes the final decision with facts, with information that this thing should go to this other place rather than this place, sometimes it may not work, but sometimes it can work. Sometimes people tell me, what if it doesn't work? And I tell them, what if it works? So it is always better to have the evidence that can, tilt the political decision to where exactly it should go. It's always a problem when there is no evidence to guide political decisions. Otherwise, anything will just go. I remember there was a time we were to conduct an intervention for certain infectious diseases affecting children of school age. And I did a statewide assessment of the situation of that disease. And I noticed that there are some local government areas that the diseases were more, that if we are going to put intervention, if we put a little in those local government areas, we are going to achieve more than in places where they were not. So I had to make a strong case to the government. And of course, they needed to take decision. But although there were people who wanted the thing to just come to their place just because of political interest. But the governor looked at it and said, come, these people need this thing more, and it is ravaging the children there. Why don't we start there first? Then as we are going those other places where they don't need it much, it will still get to them. And that was why the intervention was now focused on the places where they had it more. But if that evidence wasn't there, some people who were, who may have greater control over the activities of decision making may decide to put it in the place because there was no other yardstick to say, okay, take it there. The person will say, okay, that's my place, let it go there. But because there was evidence available, it helped guided political decision that needed to be made. And that's exactly what we are talking about in that first point. Now, the second point, researchers need to understand more broadly the history and politics of policy making and how these factors, on one hand, narrow the usefulness of particular research results, and on the other hand, make certain research results critically important to the policy debate. The same thing I'm talking about. You need to understand, the history and the politics of policy making, and understand that most of the time, all right, information, strong evidence actually help guide political decision. Honestly, it helps. It helps. I remember in the dispensations that somebody was going to do a campaign, was coming for a campaign, a political office aspirant. And then people did some assessment and told the person, this is where the needs of the people are mainly. So you need to use it to formulate your manifesto. This is where their needs are. If you mention this particular area that is part of the places you are going to focus, if elected, you are going to get the people's overwhelming support. And that was what happened. Now, it was through research that people were able to identify where the needs are in that particular locality, and may use it to formulate the manifesto of the political aspirant. And that was what he used. And so the people felt, this man knows our mind. This man knows what is paining us. This man is associating and aligning himself with what is happening in our lives. And so why can't we vote him? All right, so that's what we are talking about. And then what is too often missing from the field of research is an awareness of how explicitly political factors such as partisanship, voters' view, the beliefs of key interest groups, the nature of media coverage, and the jurisdictional responsibilities of congressional committees shape the receptivity to or lack of interest in particular research results. When you are making a research result to be at variance with the direction and the focus that the political direction is going, it is not likely that it's going to be acceptable. It's not. Now, for instance, let me give you an example. Now, if you are coming up with any evidence that has nothing to do with COVID-19, it is very difficult for anybody to listen to you now. But once you are coming with evidence that this evidence will help in managing COVID-19, people will listen to you, the government will listen to you, because that's where everybody's interest is. It's affecting all of them there. Nobody is comfortable in the Senate, nobody is comfortable in the House of Rep. Everybody wants to see, how do we get rid of this virus? So if anything you are doing now, you are not talking about something that has no bearing with COVID-19, you may not get anybody to listen to you. And then you will start complaining that they don't want to listen to me. I got evidence. That your evidence has nothing to do with the dispensation that we are in at the moment. So that's very, very important. Now, let's look at the political nature of environmental issues. Now, environmental issues, like almost all other aspects of human life, is political in numerous ways. One, environmental issues are political because, like any other resource or commodity under neoliberal economic system, some social groups have more of it than others. Look at water. There are people who have more water than the others. Look at other things that have to do with the environment. There are people who have access to it than others. And that's why it has become political. Once there is no spread across, politics comes in. Why are we not having politics about air? That's because air is everywhere. Everybody breathes it. You just bring out your nose and take as much as you like. Everybody has it, the same amount. But anything that has to do with, that is not limit, that is, that is limited. Anything that is limited and has to, you always see that some people will get it more than others. And because some people get it more than the others, politics comes in. And it's important we have that at the back of our minds. Environmental issues are political because their social determinants are amenable to political interventions and are thereby dependent on political action. That's why I showed you in the last class the SDGs. And I told you that 10 out of 17 of them are directly related to environment. So that's why you cannot, there is no way you can do anything, without, the politics coming in. Now, ultimately, environmental issues are political because power is exercised over them as part of the wider economic, social, and political system. Changing this system requires political awareness and political struggle. So it's very, very important. Okay? Now, that political awareness and political struggle, that's what I want to introduce you people into. We struggle it in our own way to get the correct policies made. It takes a struggle to do that because there are people who wouldn't want that to happen. Maybe they are benefiting from the collapse of the system, the lack of implementable policies, and things not moving. As a matter of fact, there are people who benefit from the collapse of the system. So it will take some struggle. That struggle means it will cost you some time, some energy, some resources, some effort. And that's exactly what I'm trying to present to you. Now, there are theoretical frameworks, all right, that we can use to understand the political aspects of environmental policy. One, there is the first one that is called political will or technocratic model. We're looking at the frameworks, the political will or technocratic model. Now, the political will or technocratic model assume that decisions by political leaders are necessary and sufficient for policy change, and that these leaders are rational actors maximizing the public interest. Now, that first one is the most ideal. How I wish we have this, the political will or technocratic model across, but in reality, you can't have this across. Sometimes people at a particular instance can tend to this model, and in another instance, they tend to another one. But we know that it is also part of what is practiced, where people have the people in mind, and they want to make sure that they do things that will improve the life of the people. Now, the second one is political faction or partisan or pluralist model. Now, the political factions or partisan or pluralist model assumes that politicians seek to serve the desires of different groups, including interest groups, bureaucratic agencies, political parties. Now, this model emphasis on how government organizations and employees seek to protect and promote their own narrow sectarian interests. Now, that also exists, but let me say this. You can take advantage of this. This is where majority falls in. In terms of our political system, that's where majority falls in. But you can take advantage of it. I've always told people, you want to pursue certain policies that are good. Can you make effort to introduce it to a political party to have it as part of their, maybe manifesto or their target? It's important. When you make it that this political faction model, they will use it to drive it. I used to tell people that you don't say there is no political will. There is political will. You just need to identify where it's going and then target what you want to put inside that political will, and the political will drive it. It's always there. It's always there. Now, let me give you an instance. In our state, the governor introduced a program that is targeted at improving the moral situation of our secondary school students, so that they can learn good morals, avoid cultism, work hard on their exams and all that in public secondary schools across the state, and invested so much, having senatorial coordinators and then local government coordinators, and placed them on salary. Then somebody now came, one of our experts who is into school health, and now was complaining that there is nothing the government is doing about school health program, that it is difficult for anything about school health to work. And I told the person, there is already a government program that is on ground running. All you need to do, meet the people that are in charge of the program, and then the people that are going to teach students about morals, let them also learn how to teach students about personal hygiene. You don't need to hire different set of people to now go from school to school teaching personal hygiene, teaching people hand wash, teaching people how to care for their health, students. No, there is already a program going on. All you need, that's a political will. It's already running. Just on and put it on it and let it drive you as that. And then the person never saw it that way. But that's what is now being explored. So that those teachers that go from school to school teaching morals, they can now also be guided and taught how they will be able to teach the children how to do personal hygiene, health education. After all, did they not say, how do they put it? Cleanliness is next to godliness. So they are together. When you are teaching people, don't join cults. You also tell them, make sure you wash your hand after you go to toilet. It's the same thing. The same person can still do that. So that's what we're talking about. You can take advantage of whatever model that is on ground and see how you can deploy the laudable programs that will help. Then the last one is the political. The political, they assume existing costs. Now there are people that are like that. They will do anything to remain in power. They will do anything to remain in power. Now you can also explore that. Since they can do anything to remain in power and they have the mind to do that, let it be that laudable programs are lined up for them, so that as they are doing all things to remain in power, they are doing laudable programs that will help them to remain in power. Some of the things I used to advise people is that I say take advantage, of political feasibility. I will still talk about that. Take advantage of political feasibility and see how you can sell a program that is people-oriented to somebody who has this kind of determination to remain. Let that energy be channeled into what will help people, for things to work for them. You might succeed in doing that. I will explain further under political feasibility. Now, how do you create political feasibility? Very, very important. Now, there are people who are occupying certain positions, like I said, when I was explaining one of the questions, who have what it takes to allocate resources to certain areas. Let me give you an instance. I was invited to be a book reviewer at the book review of a prominent citizen of my state. And then she was celebrating, some good things that have happened around her life. And then she now launched a book, and I was asked to review the book. As a matter of fact, 2 books. So I reviewed them. Now, one of our senators representing my state was in that meeting. So when I came there, the first thing I did, I looked around at the people who were attending the meeting. I looked around because that's one thing I do. Whenever I go to a place, I look for the stakeholders, people that I know that, can make things happen. That platform has brought us together, and I use it to socialize. I use it to meet with them. So I carry my complimentary card everywhere I go, and I will advise you to start doing the same. So I saw this man, he was the chairman of the occasion. Wonderful. So I was now called to review the book. Before I started reviewing the book, I got up to the microphone and said, I want to, in a very special way, salute the senator, the distinguished senator that is in our midst. I said, sir, we have been following your activities at the house, at the floor of the Senate, and I want, on behalf of these people that are here, to congratulate you for giving our state a vibrant representation at the Senate. Before the man didn't know where he got up, and started nodding his head. And I told him that there is a bill that will help us, and I see you in a very good position to present that bill at the floor of the Senate. The man told me, Professor Uneke, please, immediately after this meeting, I'm waiting for you. We must present that bill. That's what is called political feasibility. You understand? I know they like to be recognized, but you don't recognize them for nothing. You recognize them and still push something that will help the public. I can't go to the floor of the Senate and present any bill. I'm not a senator. But here is a senator in my presence, and I will just come and talk about book and go. No, that's an opportunity, and I wouldn't like to miss it. I'm a head policy expert. I'm a policy expert, and I will take advantage of political feasibility. I didn't invite the man. He may not come if I invite him to anything, because we are not at the same level, perhaps. But that program has brought us. And the man kept on asking, and he's one of those that I'm going to go through for certain things to be presented at the Senate, because the commitment has been done, openly. So I'm no longer new to him. So the point I'm trying to make is that you need to take advantage. These people are human beings. They are our brothers. They are our sisters. Don't look at political office holders as if they are spirits. They are coming from, they are our brothers. Some of them are your relatives, close relatives. So you can't fold your arm and say, oh, he has gone political way, let him be going. No, we need them so that we can push some of these policies. Otherwise, nothing gets done. I know the number of policies I've influenced in my state. And if not that I was there, some things would have gone wrong. And because of that, the government has, brought me to chair some of those committees, some of the health committees in my state. I chair it. And there is no way I can be there and then won't bring correct evidence, to bear on whatever decisions that will be made. So that's the point I'm trying to make. We have to take advantage of this political feasibility and see how we can push the right things so that the political process will carry that right thing and it will be to the benefit of the people. All right. So if you look at the players in the environmental reform politics, we have the public sector organizations, we have the public sector individuals, we have the private sector institutions, labor organizations, civil society organizations, media organizations. Now, let me say this. The reason why I brought this so that you can see the players and start thinking of how to start engaging them. They have, look at them. There are 6 of them, key players in the environmental reform politics of any policy you are making in environment. And you may perhaps know them better than myself, all right? But have them at the back of your mind that these are powerful players. I will still talk about media organization because that's one of the aspects that people neglect. The media is powerful. Let me say this categorically. The media is powerful. And if you have the media on your side, there is nothing you cannot achieve. We did a study, we're trying to look at providing evidence for the Ministry of Health on COVID-19 lockdown measures and how to ease it in my state. And when we went through carried out the study across all the local government areas in my state, the people confirmed that they are the highest, the topmost source of information is the radio. Topmost source of information is the radio. So it is so powerful that you can use the media to achieve great things. I am partnering with the media. I have friends I have made in radio stations, in television stations, in newspaper stations. You need them because these are people you will have to work with so that the information will get to the people. You are not a newscaster. Nobody will allow you to go to the newsroom. You are not a news editor, but you can work with them and provide them information the latest language. Use it to be able to reach out to people. When I was the director of research in my university, the third fund institutional research-based grants that we gave, I made it compulsory. I said one of the activities you must include for you to be able to receive the next installment of your grant is that when you finish your research, you have to go to the radio station and hold 60-minute program and talk about your research, how it has benefited the public, how it will benefit the public, and let people call in. They call it 60 minutes in the radio station in my state. So I said you must include in your budget 60 minutes radio station program because you have to go and talk about your research to the people, educate the people, let them know what you are doing. And then the awareness will be there. Now you can imagine when up to 20 different programs, research going on in the university came to the radio and people were talking about what they did and how the thing will benefit the community. There is no other most powerful way to spread that information. So that's one of the ways to create political feasibility. Then I go to something that is very important. We call it stakeholder power analysis. What is power? Power is defined by Max Weber as the probability that one actor within a social relationship will be in a position to carry out his own will despite resistance. I like that definition. Anybody who has the ability and will be in the position to carry out his own will despite resistance, that's what is called power, as far as this, what we're talking about, is concerned. Now look at the sources of power. Power over is the ability to influence, control over people or events to achieve certain outcomes. Power to is an expression that creates the belief that every individual has the ability to make a difference. Power with is to act as a unit or join forces in a collective action. Power within refers to the internal self-worth of an individual. Now, you need to understand this because, there is what is called stakeholder power analysis. There is no way we do that here, but some of those materials I sent, you might find it, but I will just briefly go over it because of the limited time you have. But it's important that you understand how to do stakeholder power analysis so that you know the level of power a stakeholder has and the limit that stakeholder has. It is important when you know this, so you now know who will be able to drive a particular process. And you now know who do you take as your champion, who do you involve, to what extent are you going to involve the person, how far can the person go? These are very, very important. That's why we're talking about stakeholders power analysis. Now look at the phases of power. There is the visible power, which is exercised when individuals, organizations, or governments set standard, dictate policy types and direction, and the choice of the implementation strategies. Then there is the hidden power, which is exercised when powerful people and institutions maintain their influence by setting and manipulating agendas and marginalizing the concerns and voices of the less powerful. Then there is the invisible power, which is when those with power are able to influence the belief system of others. Problems and issues are kept away not only from the decision table, but also from the knowledge of different people, including those affected by these decisions. Now, you see, you need to understand, because that is the power play that takes place. You need to understand it, so that when you have the understanding, you can now know how to manage each of these. There is an aspect too that is called managing political interference in the policy making process. So when you have this understanding, you know whichever one any group of persons is exhibiting. So, okay, this one is exhibiting visible power or hidden power or invisible power. Then you now know the best way to tackle it. Now, the policy processes and the political interferences, there is what is called instructive involvement. In instructive involvement or political interference is where government makes the decision, but mechanisms exist for information exchange. The government hands down the decision to the implementers and the other stakeholders. In other words, top-down approach. We are used to this in this country, top-down approach. When this happens, communities may not be mobilized. This keeps them away from active participation. And I have been quarreling with this approach everywhere I go, even at the national level, as things I quarrel with. See, Nigeria is so complex that top-down approach will not work. If we must use top-down approach, then we must build the capacity of people at the lower levels to translate the generic policies that are coming from the top and contextualize it to the states and even to the local government level. That capacity is not there. And that's why top-bottom approach will not always work. And sometimes if you want to make policies that will not work, you do that top-bottom approach. And that the thing cannot work, because there is no way one policy will work across the whole Nigeria. It's not possible. It's not possible because of the way our system is structured. The diversity is just something else. And then the second one, consultative involvement, is where government is the decision maker, but stakeholders have a degree of influence over the process. That one is better than the instructive, but this is the best. The last one, cooperative involvement, is where primary stakeholders act as partners with government in decision-making process. That's where we are going, this cooperative involvement. That's where we are going, because that's the only one that can work very well in our own system. Now, we look at factors influencing policy making in the government. I just brought this to highlight what I've explained before, so I won't go into so much details. We have values, resources, judgment, experience, pragmatism, lobbyists, and habit. All these things are part of the things that influence evidence, in policy making. Now, how do you manage interference? Quickly. Number one, build policy studies into regular academic programs. We need to have more understanding of how things work in our system. And we have experts in academic environment who will build, policy studies into regular academic programs. There is doing. Anytime I have masters and PhD level, what I ask them is that go to the ministry, go and find out their needs, and then come back with tailor a study to that. You don't just go to the internet and search out topic. Thousands of problems around us. Tell them, go to the ministry, ask them where are the areas they need information, so that you can carry out research, so that by the time you are bringing the evidence, the uptake will be high. So it's very, very important. Workshop, we and deliberate. Prioritizing technical issues, very, very important. Things are improving, things are changing, and then people need to get more of then effective communication. We need to continue to talk, we need to continue to discuss, we need to continue to dialogue. Interministerial collaboration, which is very, very important. There is no way you can succeed without that. We need to work together because resources are scarce so that we don't duplicate efforts. Then there is routine committees, very, very important because they will have to report their findings. And then consensus building is also very important. You need to learn how to be able to get people to agree, and come to a unanimous decision and work together. And then, of course, getting legal approval and backup. That's where the legislators come in. And like I told you, it's important. When policies are made and then it is now pushed to become law, it is not easy to change it. I can recall what happened in Lagos, how one man in Lagos saved us, a lawyer. I remember the FIRC woke up one day and announced that the old number plates should be discarded and that anybody caught with it, that the vehicle would be impounded. And everybody panicked. And because of that, the cost of new number plates was increased. Everybody finding it difficult. Then one lawyer in Lagos, I don't know his name. I think I have to try and find his name. He now went to court and said, no, when this policy was changed, it had legislative backing. He went to the National Assembly. National Assembly legislated, and then the new number plate came. So you can't come out and announce a new one without going back to the National Assembly. And the man won the case and saved a lot of. That's why road safety cannot impound your vehicle because you are carrying old number plates, because they have not gone to the National Assembly to legislate and approve it. So they still allow both those who are carrying the old one and those who are carrying the new one. So that's why, that's one of the reasons why I decided to go beyond just policymakers to start pursuing the legislators, because we need them so that they can know how to better make policies that will be backed up with evidence and then legislate upon it, and it becomes a law, and nobody can just come and throw it away like that, even if we have a new government. So what is stakeholder power analysis? I will just quickly go through this because my time is almost running out. Now, stakeholder power analysis is an organized approach to this. It's an approach for understanding the system by identifying the key actors or stakeholders in the system and assessing their respective interests or their influence. So it's very, very important. But there are a number of questions you ask. Whose problem, who benefits, who loses out? Very important. Not only who gains, but who loses out, because when somebody is gaining, another person might be losing. Now, what are the powerful differences between stakeholders? What negative influence do they have? It's very important. You need to weigh them. What can they do? What can they not do? And then before before you take a step, you need to understand what people can do and what they cannot do. Then who are the stakeholders? Already mentioned something about it, but anyone who has the right and interest to a system is a stakeholder. The problem we are making now is that sometimes we consider stakeholders as only the top people, like I have in the diagram, in the slide. These are the governors, of southwestern states, and this is one of their meetings. So it's not only them that you should look at as stakeholders. Even the people that are in the rural areas are stakeholders. So you don't consider only these very top people. And that's why, stakeholders can be categorized as primary or secondary. But then looking at policymakers, I decided to put this so that I can highlight to you the 4 categories of policymakers we have. We have the elected policymakers. That's the president, governors, senators, those who came to office by ballot. Then they are appointed. They appointed are the ministers and the commissioners, because those ones are appointed. Then the career policymakers, people like some of you who are heads of department, program managers, directors, and all that. Then there is another sector, another category, which is the civil sector. We call it civil sector policymakers. These are the traditional rulers and religious leaders. And let me tell you something. You might think that they are not powerful, this last set, but they are very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Let me give you an instance. Every week, 5,000 people go to sit down and listen to one man talk to them for 3 to 4 hours every week. That man, you don't play with that man. That man is a very powerful policymaker because he can say something to those 5,000 people and all of them will do that thing. He can also say something to the 5,000 people and all of them will resist something. So that's why when we are talking about policy making, we don't play with traditional rulers and religious leaders. As a matter of fact, in my state, the most powerful people that helped us to deal with female genital mutilation, which was a problem in my state, were this set of people, the civil sector policymakers. Because there was nothing government didn't do, it didn't work. But when we now engage these people, they were the ones that single-handedly almost dismantled the female genital mutilation, which was it has been existing for generations in some of the localities in my state. So that's why we are now giving them their place. We don't make certain policies without getting them involved. And then for some of you who are with us here today, you may look at yourself as you are not the powerful policymaker. But let me say this, among the different categories, 1 to 3, you are the engine room of the policy-making process. Now, the reason is that both the elected and the appointed will come and go. Excuse me. Both the elected and the appointed will come and go. But the career policymakers will remain. I have met some career policymakers that have outlived 3 different administrations. They are so experienced. They know how things. In fact, that was why one of them I said, please come to the university as a condiv and come and teach people. 20 years, 25 years of experience under different administration. There is no kind of political maneuvering they don't know, they have not seen, they've not been part of. So they know this. So that's why we don't play with you people that are the career policymakers. As a matter of fact, it's you people that write the policies. I've never seen a commissioner who will sit down and start writing policies or minister. They are the directors who are the career policymakers that do that. And that's why we are targeting you people, your category. Once we are able to get you to know things about policy, getting the elected and appointed to align with you is not very difficult. You just need to learn how to, work with them, and that's all. You do the policy writing yourself. You do it. In fact, what I'm telling you now, I drove it at the global level. We were in a meeting with WHO, and they were saying that they are targeting only elected and appointed policymakers. And I told them it can't work in Africa. That even these elected and appointed, you don't get them to sit down anywhere. They can only come to meetings after national anthem. They read their speech and go. It is these career policymakers that are the engine room. Those are the people we need to focus. Look, it took me a lot to convince WHO that these are the people we should focus on. But I'm happy that after about 2 years of struggling with them to get them understand this, that's why they now understand it. And that's why there are any WHO project that they are doing, they are emphasizing implementers, they are emphasizing heads, they are emphasizing program managers. It may interest you to know that it is this small man here that drove them into accepting that. And that's why, they don't really joke with you when it comes to some of the things about, WHO activities in Nigeria. So that's what I'm saying, that those of you who are part of this program, please don't look at it as if the project didn't target ministers, commissioners, and all those very high people. They come and go. One of the projects that we were doing, even permanent secretary was changed 4 times. 4 times. So I came to tell them that there is nothing permanent about a permanent secretary, because somebody can get angry tomorrow and post him to another place. In fact, in one of their past administrations in my state, I went to see the permanent secretary in Ministry of where we were working with, only for me to see a different person behind the seat. And I asked, they said, that man has been posted to Ministry of Commerce. Somebody who has been in the health sector, has acquired so much knowledge, got to the level of permanent secretary. There was cabinet reshufflement, and they sent him to commerce and brought somebody to commerce in health. And you know, everything you are talking about in health was new to the person, and we had to almost start all over again. But that's our system, and that's why we are focusing on you people. Once you get the training, forget it. Policies will align themselves, because you are the ones that really are the engine rooms of the policy making process. So that's why I'm bringing this. Now, there is a caution that I want to introduce with this, what I have on the slide. It's good to carry people along, but you have to be careful how you carry people along. Imagine this is carrying people along. But imagine if this truck is negotiating a sharp bend and at high speed. Imagine what is going to happen. So what I'm saying in essence is that in as much as it's good to make consultation, to carry people, you have to also be careful, because there are challenges. Sometimes you don't have to get everybody to accept. You just need the key individuals who can influence people. Sometimes you create problem for yourself trying to convince everybody. It's not possible. There are people listen to. There is somebody that will say something, they will listen to the person. Another person will say something, they won't listen, they won't hear. I have a very aged father. My father is about 84 years old. He goes to the hospital, the doctors will give him his drug, and then at a time he will say he's not taking it again. And the problem he's having will be deteriorating. Anybody that talks to him, he won't hear. They will now tell me, he said he won't take his drug. I will take my phone and say, if you don't take your drug, there is no allowance for you this month. He said, okay, please, I will take. And he will take it. Are you getting what I'm saying? So there is no other person he will listen to if not me, because there is something I am doing for him every month. Now there are people person except somebody. So you need to identify who that person is so that you can pass the message to the person. It will be better for them to hear that message through that person than through you. Let me give you another instance. I was trying to broker peace between the ministries, some ministries, and and the quarry industry in my state. Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Commerce. They were having issues with the quarry people. And the Ministry of Environment, one of them during our meeting said they have tried all that they could to get the people, the women working at the quarry, to wear protective, protective equipment, personal protective equipment, and they will not wear it. So the lady got up and was saying she doesn't understand this kind of nonsense people that will not hear anything they talk to them, they will not hear. I looked at her and I asked her, look at yourself. As you are, you can even go and contest Miss Nigeria. As you are, see your hair, very fine, the clothes you wear, very fine. So you will dress like this and go and meet a woman that is carrying concrete and be telling the woman to wear protective equipment like this. I said, that woman will look at you and say, this one doesn't even know what we are talking about here. I said, the best way to do that, get one of those women and train the women. Get one of them, train them. Train them. Let that person now go and talk to them. So when they see their fellow concrete carrier coming now to tell them, see, you need to wear protective equipment. They know the person is with them, the person is sharing in their pain, the person is sharing in their burden. So it makes sense to them, not you with this kind of makeup on you and heavy fine dress and then official car. You will go to a quarry and be talking to people. They will not hear you because they think that this thing is not real. So that's what we're talking about. In carrying people, you need to also understand there is what we call path dependence. Path dependence, where you don't have to pursue the rat. You get the cat to pursue the rat for you. All you are interested in is getting the rat. You mustn't be the one chasing the rat. Get a cat and the cat will do it for you. So that's what we are talking about, path dependence, where there are certain individuals you need to engage so that they'll be able to do that for you. Now, There are skills that you need, and I'll just quickly run through them. You need skills for two-way communication, respect for others, cultural and gender awareness. You have to know how to chair meetings and workshops. Facilitation of processes involves several stakeholders, trust and consensus building and conflict management, developing enthusiasm, transparency and commitment, patience. It takes time and stakeholders to consult with their own constituency and all. These are important skills that you need to have for you to be able to do stakeholder analysis. Now, I won't go into details on this because we'll still leave these slides with you, but let me just take the step and then I will round off. How do you carry stakeholder power analysis? Number one, develop purpose and procedure for analysis and initial understanding of the system. It's very important. I've been talking about that. You need to understand your system. You need to know how to approach things in the system so that things can work for you. Number two, identify key stakeholders. I've been talking about that. There are people who are champions, who can make things work. You need to identify them because these people will get things sorted out for you in certain communities, in certain places, because they have the people hear them, the people listen to them. So you need such people for you to be able to succeed. Number three, investigate stakeholders' interests, their characteristics and circumstances. You need to also know what are their interests. In case there is anybody that is interested towards anything that is laudable within what you are doing, fine, you have got the person on your side already. And if the people are not really in support of what you want to do, find a way of convincing them. Let them take that as their main, project. That's why we used to advise people, do priority setting. Let the people participate in coming up with what they think is their problem, so that you have their support as you go on ahead, to do any policy process. Number four, identify patterns and context of interaction between stakeholders. It's very, very important. You need to understand the relationship between stakeholders, see how you can enhance some, if possible, take advantage of certain stakeholders that are supporting some other people. If you need to get them on your side, it's very, very important. All these things, you need to really settle down and, analyze the people that you want to work with, the groups that you want to work with. Who are those on their side? Who are those that they in harmony with? And see how you can get them on your side so that you'll be able to have a common ground. Sometimes we advise people, even before going, maybe for policy presentation, call for meeting with some of those interest groups and discuss with them, harmonize, have a common ground before you now go, maybe to face a policy, debate or something like that. So it's very, very important. And then number five, assess stakeholder power and potential. I've already talked about that. These are just additional details. And then I provided for you here like a table, how you can categorize them. When you take a stakeholder, you can now ask, how is this stakeholder affected by this problem? Maybe severe, maybe not at all. You can just put up some yardstick to measure the level of, you can put under it so that it can help you to know what is the strength this stakeholder carries. So there is a stakeholder relationship with the main problem and each other. Table 2, expected impact of proposed project and program. And then table 3, stakeholder power analysis of a particular policy or institution. So you need to look at them, put it under each of those sections so that you'll be able to have a very good assessment of them. Now, let me conclude. There was something interesting that happened in Malaysia, and I saw it and I loved it, and I love to use it as an example. Now, after 12 years of deliberation, the High Court of Sabah and Sarawak spoke a judgment on land conflicts between local communities in Malaysia and an oil company. The court recognized the native customary rights of the local communities to their lands. This gave the local community a basis, to take retaliatory steps against the company. By wielding this power of protest, take note of that power of protest, as a collective body, they were able to cripple the company's local operations and work schedule. When asked about the imbalance of power, the company representative said, "Make no mistake, the power is with the community. We cannot go in the plantation at all. They have managed to stall everything. The power is with the community. Then, as Rami Bulan writes, this brings home the fact that everyone has some power, and he or she can claim that space and exercise that power over another. The resources of the community lay not in their economic power, but in their unity and one voice. Please, this is very, very important. Once you are able to get one voice, that is one thing that there is no government that is not scared about it. One voice. Look at some countries. Look at what has happened in some countries. People came with one voice and ousted their leaders. One voice. And that's why it is important. Don't take anybody for granted. That's why I say make no mistake, the poor also have power. I used to tell my people as I teach, I would tell them that your security man, that clerk in your office, don't underestimate the persons. Treat everybody well. Because a clerk in your office can truncate something that is very, very important. The person receives a mail. He can keep that mail until the deadline is passed. And he will just bring, oh, this thing came, oh, I forgot. What are you going to do? Highest, you give a query or you do any kind of punishment, but you have lost that thing. I try as much as possible to look at everyone that is working with me as having some power, because they do. And if you don't recognize this and treat them as if they don't mean anything, by the time they gather one voice, they will deal with anybody that is in that place. And that's why, you know, I was talking about you understanding the political context of everywhere you are, so that you can take advantage of it as somebody who has the mind to drive the policy process forward. You take advantage of what is already in place and drive it effectively, and not to create problem for yourself or the policy making process. Let me conclude with this, the lion again. We can't become what we want by remaining what we are. We need to make some change. And like I say, for those of you who have concluded that you don't want to have anything with political process going on, you cannot change anything. You will remain like that and you can't change anything. It is time that you also begin to have an understanding of the political process. Sometimes I was asking some of my colleagues as I was teaching them, I say, how many of you have entered the government house? And people didn't raise up their hand, because the average lecturer will say, what business has he with government house? I said, you better begin to have business with government house, because there are certain things you can't make happen except you start having business with government house. So for those of you who don't have any business with government house, you better start having, because that's the only way we can also take advantage of the politics, which is very critical to policy making, to make the desired change. Thank you very much.